What is defunding the police, and why should we care? To Wikipedia! Defund the police is a slogan that supports removing funds from the police departments and reallocating them to non-policing forms of public safety and community support, such as social services, youth services, housing, education, healthcare and other community resources. It is important to notice that that definition does not mention the complete removal of policing, as whilst that is a related policy, there is some debate as to the extent the police should be defunded. Some believe that the police's responsibilities can be shrunk and the remaining institution reformed, though in this case it's perhaps more prudent to talk about it as divesting from the police instead. Divestment or divestiture is the reduction of some kind of asset for financial, ethical or political objectives. A divestment is the opposite of an investment. Others believe that the institution has too many prejudices and imbalances in its very foundation to be shaped to suit a more just and egalitarian society, and that as such it should be abolished, or to put it another way, back to Wikipedia. The police abolition movement is a political movement that advocates replacing policing with other systems of public safety. The important part, however, is that regardless of whether we're talking about reducing police funds or removing the police as an institution, this part of the discussion forms only half of the argument being made. The other half is regarding what could replace the police in its social functions. Defunding the police is not a purely destructive ideology. Instead, it is looking to replace what isn't working with new agencies and services that can fulfill societal needs in a potentially healthier, safer, and frankly less violent way. Defund the police, as a slogan and concept, was popularised by the Black Lives Matter movement that rose to prominence in the US in 2020 after the police murder of George Floyd. But it had existed as a philosophy and a movement before that. The phrase and philosophy of defunding the police originated in the 20th century when activists like Angela Davis were attempting to raise awareness of the amount of explicit and subconscious racialized prejudice in the US criminal justice system. Angela Davis spoke with Democracy Now! In 2020 and said, "Well, the call to defund the police is, I think, an abolitionist demand, but it reflects only one aspect of the process represented by the demand. Defunding the police is not simply about withdrawing funding for law enforcement and doing nothing else. It's about shifting public funds to new services and new institutions. Mental health counsellors who can respond to people who are in crisis without arms. It's about shifting funding to education, to housing, to recreation. All of these things help to create security and safety. It's about learning that safety, safeguarded by violence, is not really safety." After decades of racialised state violence, activists like Davis do not see a redeemable future for the police force, and instead believe that starting from scratch is the only way to ensure that criminal justice can remove its white supremacist roots and build a fairer version that includes everybody. Authors Miriam Kaba and Andrea J. Ritchie released a book in 2022 called No More Police, A Case for Abolition, and in an interview with TheNation.com in support of that book, they explained, "Police exist to enforce existing relations of power and property. Period. They may claim to preserve public safety and protect the vulnerable, but police consistently perpetuate violence while failing to create safety for the vast majority of the population, no matter how much money we throw at them. Their actions reflect their core purposes, to preserve racial capitalism and to manage and disappear its fallout." So defunding the police started out as a pretty much explicitly abolitionist movement, born out of historical prejudice and violence against racial minorities. And the case being made by activists like Davis, Kaba and Ritchie certainly promotes a powerful argument for why the police should be removed wholesale as opposed to reformed. However, such views are still viewed as radical in the mainstream, albeit with growing support thanks to the Black Lives Matter movement. With wider awareness comes a bigger breadth of views, and as such, newer, more liberal adopters of these views can sometimes be frightened by the idea of abolishing what is considered a central institution of Western society. For this reason, we must always be clear about what we are talking about when we discuss defunding the police. We must make absolutely clear that police functions that are currently poorly executed, neglected or used as a pretense for violence are to be replaced with other, more beneficial services. The US has led on a lot of the defund the police talk, with most of the activism, academia and airtime coming from overseas. But the UK police force has many similar issues, and in recent years, tragedies such as the murder of Sarah Everard, the sentencing of serial rapist and serving police officer David Carrick, and now Baroness Casey's report on the inherent prejudices of the Metropolitan Police have brought the conversation back into the UK mainstream. The UK has a long history of racial prejudice in the police force, with the murder of Stephen Lawrence in the 90s and the subsequent Macpherson report in 1999 finally leading to mainstream acceptance of the problems that minority communities had been highlighting for decades. However, the failure of the police forces to deal with these issues has led to a growing sense that perhaps real and significant change needs to be enforced onto the police from outside, or perhaps even the institution itself needs to be examined as to its fitness to continue in the 21st century. As talk continues about how best to deal with an institution that is racist, sexist and homophobic, according to the Metro's front page, defunding the police becomes a very real possibility and something we need to discuss. Defunding the police can be seen as a very scary prospect for those who have only seen or heard the phrase coming from journalists, with it often being framed as a sort of extreme and unrealistic point of view. Indeed, Principal Free Keir Starmer poo-pooed the concept during the BLM protests, describing the police's situation as follows. "It's a shame it's getting tangled up with these organisational issues with the organisation Black Lives Matter, but I wouldn't have any truck with what the organisation is saying about defunding the police. That's just nonsense." However, the more we examine what is actually being said, that the police are failing to effectively do their stated job, that the police are unable to stop being a racist, sexist and homophobic institution, that defunding the police doesn't mean leaving a police-shaped hole in society, the more we start to see the potential of this line of thinking. I will be looking in more detail at several aspects of the defund the police arguments in future videos. But I will leave you with this quote from Godfrey and Lawrence's book Crime and Justice 1750 to 1950. "If one were to attempt to make from scratch a criminal justice system fit for contemporary society, it would not be at all like the one we have today." Food for thought, perhaps. Thanks for checking out this video. I hope it's been helpful in clarifying a few of the concepts involved, where they've come from, and why they're worth thinking about in future discussions. Please give this video a like to help it get out there on YouTube, and subscribe if you would like to see more videos in this series or other content on this channel. As with all left discourse, it's only useful if we discuss these ideas with those around us, so talk to your family and friends about defunding. Don't let the likes of the BBC, LBC and Facebook be the only place people see any information about defunding the police. Let's counter some of this nonsense. Take care of each other, unionise, don't vote for the lesser evil, and I will see you again very soon. Take care.